Well, since the arrest of longtime Donald Trump advisor Roger Stone, the press has rallied around the people who arrested him and around a very specific interpretation of events. It was completely justified, they say, for the FBI to show up with enough armed agents to overthrow a Central American country. And if Stone says he was upset by all that, well, he must be lying.
FBI had information that he might try to destroy evidence, so they went in, I think, with an appropriate level of apprehension.
They had every reason to believe he was going to destroy evidence. He had threatened witnesses, or a witness at least, and he was playing hardball back.
How does this differ from other people surrounding a house for a raid from the FBI? I don't think it's that different. By the way, the guy spent the entire day in front of news cameras. Clearly, he was traumatized.
Who would put that mud guy on TV? I mean, it's really just a disgrace, I would say. The former CIA director John Brennan, speaking of disgrace, insinuated that Stone was Hannibal Lecter's long-lost cousin. Watch this.
What happened with Roger Stone was in keeping with the standard operating procedures of the FBI. They were conducting an arrest and executing a search warrant. And let's not forget, Roger Stone has a fair amount of sort of unstable activities and comments that he had made. Stealing someone's dog, telling somebody, Randy Credico, prepare to die. This is not somebody that you want to trifle with.
You don't trifle him. Now, Brennan, the guy you just saw talking, once lied to the public, you, me, and the rest of us, about killing civilians with drone bombs. But that's not a big deal, really. He's still got a cable contract. So what does Roger Stone have to say about the coverage of his arrest? Well, we're going to ask him. He is on the set tonight. Roger Stone, thank you for joining us. Aren't you under a gag order?
No, actually, the judge said today that she's considering one. She asked for the government and for my attorneys to submit their thoughts about that. I'm going to refrain from speaking about the specifics of the indictment because I think I have addressed it to the extent that I'm going to. But I'm very interested in what's happened here because one of my neighbors has now signed a sworn affidavit who was out walking their dog. And the CNN crew, their truck, showed up roughly a half an hour, 35 minutes before the FBI. I live on a dead-end street. The street was sealed, but they were allowed to stay in position right in front of my house. Now, if I was dangerous, which is the premise of this raid, why were they allowed to stay within the danger zone? Why were they put in harm's way? The idea that I'm a flight risk is ridiculous. I don't have a valid passport. Although I support the Second Amendment, I don't own a gun. There were no firearms in the house. And I've been under investigation for 2 years. So what information did the FBI have that I would destroy evidence? Why would I wait till
I don't know. Friday? John Brennan, who is a liar.
John Brennan,
but he says you're a dog kidnapper.
Well, look, again, that's in the indictment, and I will address it at an appropriate time because it's not true. But first of all, I've written extensively on animal welfare rights for the Daily Caller and have worked very hard to stop the government from conducting inhumane scientific experiments on dogs and cats. But
I mean, you're a dog lover of the first water.
But more importantly, John Brennan perjured himself twice before the Congress, once regarding the role of the Steele dossier and the FISA warrants, and secondarily regarding his breaking into the computers of a Senate committee looking into illegal torture by the CIA.
Yeah, just lying about killing people with drones. Not a big deal.
But he's not being prosecuted, like Mr. Comey, Mr. McCabe, Rod Rosenstein, Mr. Wray. General Clapper, of course, who said that, well, no, there's no metadata collection process. And then, of course, Hillary Clinton herself.
So
all those people have perjured themselves, but I'm being prosecuted for perjury.
Well, they never gave the finger to the man, though. And that may be your main crime, in my view. But let me ask you about the day of the arrest.
Yes.
So that was, I guess, a week ago today. You said that CNN remained within the security perimeter.
Yes.
During a raid that clearly they must have considered dangerous because they had automatic weapons. At least one arresting officer had 2 rifles with him and a sidearm. It's a lot of guns. How do you think CNN was allowed to stay there? How does that make sense?
I don't know, and I hope Senator Lindsey Graham and the House Republicans will get to the bottom of that because I'd like to know who signed off on this raid. I mean, look, the main reason that the gag order concerns me is because I need to be able to raise the money to mount a defense.
Right.
They have unlimited taxpayer dollars, 3 platoons of Ivy League left-wing lawyers to prosecute me. They have just given us an enormous amount of material in discovery that we have to go through, 3 terabytes, according to their press release. unless people can go to stonedefensefund.com, and unless I have a forum to promote it, I can't possibly
So I don't
raise
understand,
enough money.
on what grounds could they just end your First Amendment rights?
Well, they, as you know, they gagged Paul Manafort in his trial because I would be prejudicing witnesses. Pardon me, I'd be prejudicing a jury. Well, that was the whole purpose of this raid, was to poison a jury, to hold me up as public enemy number one.
To use a cable news channel as a PR operation to get their message out. So if they gag you and take your First Amendment rights away, does that mean that they're no longer allowed to leak to CNN against you?
Well, it's an interesting question, but the whole purpose of the gag would be so I don't poison a potential jury pool, but they've just poisoned a potential jury pool by making me look like El Chapo or Pablo Escobar.
But so it just seems a little bit one-sided. So they can arrest you with overwhelming force and automatic weapons and armored vehicles and stun grenades, and then they can force you not to speak in public, but they can still say whatever they want about you to news organizations
and
leak.
And leak. I mean, 2 years of leaks, as you know, that I was going to be arrested every other Tuesday, has destroyed my business. The censorship of my show on InfoWars and the censorship of my Facebook page has hurt my book sales dramatically. I'm a New York Times best-selling author. So this is part of the plan, destroy you financially. So like General Flynn, you have to plead guilty to something you didn't do.
Unbelievable. Well, you're always welcome on this show, gag order or not. Roger Stone, thank you very much.